but someone needs to dare to say what I think is uncomfortable. That's my job. That's how I look at myself. I'm the guy that needs to point out the things that are uncomfortable. I can maybe guide people towards a direction, but ultimately they're the ones that are going to have to figure it out, right? If you look at the total amount of time or even money that has been spent on our creators, a game that would have been in development at a larger scale publisher for that amount of time would have cost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. We're not even near that.
Hello and welcome to the Game Business Show with me, Christopher Tring. Back in 2018, a handful of creators and leaders from Electronic Arts, many of whom have worked on the Battlefield franchise, left to form a new studio called Embark, which is now owned by Nexon. This new team would go on to release online free-to-play shooter The Finals in 2023, which saw 20 million players in its first month. That game has had its ups and downs and ups again. But now Embark is about to release its second game, the extraction shooter Arc Raiders, which is generating a lot of pre-release hype. It's very high on the Steam wishlist count. It's got hundreds of thousands of players in their technical tests. Now, Arc Raiders actually started development before the finals, and it's had a long journey to release. It was very much a cooperative game to begin with, and now it's a sort of player versus player extraction shooter. Now, to talk about the new game, launching in the current market, the state of the industry, the finals, making video games in a new way, I am joined by the founder and CEO of Embark, Patrick Soderlund. Hello, Patrick. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
The last time I spoke to you, and it would have been a long time ago now, you were still running studios at Electronic Arts. Mm-hmm. And so it feels strange to me to be speaking to you straight after a Battlefield launch, and we're not here to talk about Battlefield.
We can. Played a lot of it, so...
Have you played a lot of Battlefield 6? I haven't played it yet. I mean, I played a little bit of the test in the summer.
I played, probably 30, 40 hours of it.
Oh, really? Wow. Wow. You don't have that Stockholm syndrome for the...
No, I don't either. But no, I just thought it looked good and I wanted to try it and play it and see, my skills may not be what they once were, but I'm okay.
Does it feel funny not to someone else to take over and take away your baby, basically?
Well, yeah, that was a decision that I made myself. Mm-hmm. So from that perspective, it's fine. I'm happy for the fact that the game is good. I mean, it is a good game without a doubt. I think that it's a very complete package that they've made. I know a lot of people have worked very hard to kind of resurrect and make this comeback for the brand. So for me, it's, of course, I'm happy. I'm happy for them. I'm happy for the fact that something that, was one of the key reasons why I started in this industry a very long time ago, gets to survive and gets to thrive. There's nothing wrong with that.
No. Well, we obviously talk about your game, but actually before we get to Arc Raiders, your actual first game was The Finals, which is an interesting story because you had this, I remember it, you had this huge big reveal and launch sort of at the back end of 2023.
Yeah.
Then things fell away quite fast, but you persisted with it. What was did you always believe in it? Was there ever any doubt?
The Finals was a game that I didn't think that we would ever build, to be honest. When I and the other founders left EA and, what we previously spoke about, the Battlefield brand and other brands as well, I think we kind of had a hunger to create something different, something that wasn't an FPS or a game where you shoot other people necessarily in the same way. And we decided that, that's when we started building on Arc Raiders and what was then Arc Raiders. But then obviously, there's a reason why we built these types of games for so many years, many of us. And I think we kind of got an itch to go and, explore that segment again. And I remember telling some of the individuals who were working on it that, listen, we won't go into this space unless we can come with something that can serve up and have a meaningful innovation and that brings something new and fresh to the market. Otherwise, why bother? We're not going to go and try and build, a game that's already out there and try and do it better or our version of it. That makes no sense. We wanted to build something that brought something new. So that's, and then we had a long, multiple conversations around what could that be, how would it be executed, everything. And that eventually led to the finals. we also knew that we wanted to try and maximize the amount of players playing the game. And being a relatively small studio, we felt like free to play is a business model that could make sense, as long as we try and implement a version of free to play that's fair, that is just towards the players, and that we don't take every angle to monetize them, but it's built on kind of a fair, trusting relationship towards our paying and playing customers. Whether you pay or play or just play, it doesn't really matter. We launched the game. We were surprised at how many people played it, to be honest. We had over 20 million downloads very quickly, and people, came to play the game. So I think that we had obviously created something that people had an interest in playing. That was obvious. We mission complete on that aspect. But then I remember it so well. We were all away during Christmas. I remember I was on a trip somewhere, and very addicted to my phone and reading all the data that was basically hourly. We saw revenue numbers, player numbers. We saw everything coming in, on it. So I was watching my phone constantly during the break. And then January 7th, I remember, was the day when kind of everything started declining rapidly to a large extent. We were completely fine then, and we thought that we were, this is, that we've created a monster. And then it took about a month, and then people started doing something else. They stopped playing the game to a large extent, and we lost massive players. The player numbers went down very quickly. And we came back and started thinking, what's happened? Has something else launched? And, it took us a while to fully understand why that was. I think we got to a place where it was evident that there wasn't enough content in the game. We didn't do a good job enough onboarding players. We didn't do a good enough job explaining the game modes. We had a problem with our menu and UI HUD, everything. And then I think what was evident also for us was there's no quick fix. There's nothing that we can do. There's not one thing that is wrong that will make this fix. That fix that creates a solution that then all the players are back. That wasn't the case. We quickly realized that wasn't the case. So we had to be very methodical about it. We had to go back and talk to the players as best we could, mine all the data, and then data is great, and it can be your best friend, but it can also be your worst enemy, because it's what you do with the data that dictates the outcome. And everyone talks about data, but what people should be talking about is actually what to do with data, and how to analyze data, and what decisions you make on something that is inherently creative and a piece of entertainment, right? So we had to learn how to do that our way, and it took time, but. And we tried many things. We thought that we were lacking a game mode, and we had to fix that. So then we added something that we thought was awesome. The terminal attack game mode, we loved it. And I was thinking, this is it. Now everyone's going to come back, and everyone, most people didn't like it.
Oh, no.
So okay, now what? What do we do now? So that was kind of the constant loop that we had to go through in order to understand, to get to a place where we felt like we made progress. And then we did make progress. I think we were, by the people that stuck to us and still played, which, there were still a lot of them. They could see what we were trying to accomplish. I think they applauded the effort. And then we slowly started seeing more and more players kind of either come back or come in and try the game. And then our, retention mechanics were better, and got better over time. And now, for the last, I would say, 6 months, we've been on a steady growth trajectory again, and we're growing the franchise. We're seeing, and the game is profitable, which is a good thing, and we feel good about it. So we're sitting here planning, not months ahead, but years ahead of what this game can become and what to do with it. So I know that that's probably a relatively unusual story. A lot of games we've seen come out and then go through the same thing, and unfortunately, they cease to exist, especially in the free-to-play market. So I'm a little bit surprised that we managed to make the changes that we did, and that we got to a place that's not now much better. Doesn't mean that it will last forever, but it means that we've done something right.
Well, is there anything from that you're able to take into Arc Raiders that you learned?
No, of course, a ton. Just launching with more content, more depth. It's not necessarily about having more than 3, 4, 5, or 7. I mean, it's not the amount of maps necessarily. It's how you utilize the content. It's the depth. What do people do? The first thing you have to understand is when you play the game, the second to second, if you don't nail that, there's no game. So then you talk about, traditionally talk about what happens every minute in the game. You need to nail that too. Those things you can't negotiate. Unless you have those figured out, no one is going to want to play the game. I think that for both Arc Raiders and for the finals, those two, to a large extent, we figured out. Then you go into hour by hour, and then day by day, and then maybe week by week, month by month. That's where the problem starts, and you need to really make sure that you have things for players to do, things for players to accomplish, things for that you have an ever-evolving game that feels like you want to come back to, that punishes you enough, but not too much, right? That is rewarding yet not too rewarding, and that feels fair yet sometimes unfair. And that's the balance you have to thread, right? And as a developer, it's I'm not saying that we're going to get it right 100% for Arc Raiders, but I think that the learnings that we've had has taught us a lot. And I also know that in the events or cases where we don't get it right, I think that we're going to be much quicker to jump on those problems and cure them, or try to cure them.
Well, I was going to ask this later, but that's actually the biggest thing of a live service online game, is that you can do the big numbers at the start. We've seen that happen many times over the last year. I mean, you've also seen games like Concord and other things fall over, but we've seen lots of games start very strongly. But the hard bit is keeping them, particularly when you're in a massively saturated online space where people have come from somewhere. They've come from, I don't know, Helldivers or Call of Duty, whatever the game is. They've come to you from somewhere else, and now you're going to have to. They're going to go back at some point, and that's or potentially go back at some point, which I guess is the really difficult thing about this space that you're in.
Yeah, it's funny that we talk about that. We talked about respecting players' time and the fact that they've chosen to come to our game to try it, and our job is to make sure that they feel like that was worth the time, and if they do, they may stick around. but if we talk about respecting players' time a lot in the studio, and understanding that there are so many other things out there that are great that they can choose to play instead of what we have, unless we do a good enough job.
You've gone with the premium model with Arc Raiders. I don't know. I think you're planning to do free to play to begin with. What was the thinking behind the shift in business model from the finals to Arc Raiders?
There were many aspects of that. I think other games coming to market with success, Helldivers was one of them. We looked at that. We looked at the construct of Arc Raiders, and at the same time, we were faced with a declining business on the finals. So many things, I think, led to that decision. But the front and center was the type of game that we were trying to build, and we felt like if you build a free-to-play game, you have to have an economically viable way to make that game stay alive. As a developer, that is what it is. We can't just make free games that are 100% free because people there need to, get paid and they have families and homes and things so we can't. So for us, we felt like but it's also a game thing. It puts pressure on the game. To the finals is pretty simple. It was, we just, you can choose to pay if you want to, and all you pay for are cosmetics and battle passes. Basically, there's no way for you to get better. Paying anything to get better. Our job is to make sure that we have a lot of things in there that people feel like they want to spend $1 on or $5 on or $10 on, and if they do, good for us. If they don't, they can still play the game and have a good time. Our creators, we felt, had a deeper construct than that, and the kind of cosmetics, a business model based purely on cosmetics and battle pass, we didn't feel suited that game at that point in time. So it was a creative decision that then also was formed, informed by market conditions and what we were trying to, and then obviously our own results with the finals. So
yeah,
it was multiple things that led to that.
We've talked about this before. Ark Raiders was revealed, was it in 2021? It was the game that was supposed to be before the finals, but you decided it wasn't right. I think you said it wasn't fun. I mean, how did you come to that, realize that kind of brutal realization, I guess it must have been?
Unfortunately, we should have come to that conclusion sooner or earlier. I think I was the one that just said, listen, guys, it's not working. It's not fun enough. We relied on a game where the kind of loop, the compulsion loop of the game was so dependent on deep innovations within artificial intelligence, both in reinforcement learning, machine learning, and other aspects. And we thought that we could build a whole game around that experience. You would go in and you would have amazing moments, and you would be like, yep, we nailed it, high five. And then you played 4 hours straight that were, just not fun. And some of them were even painfully bad because the encounters weren't good enough. You had a problem getting players to collaborate properly, etc. And you'll hear this from some of the key individuals here in the studio, but I personally was after this PvP idea a couple of months into the development. I just said, I believe there's a game here that could be more fun if it was a PvE game. I didn't talk about the extraction elements of Ark Raiders that came later. But we wanted to let the team run with this idea because there was so much innovation in it, and that we believe that we could figure it out. But at some point, you have to make a decision, and it's one thing to try a week, a month, even a year. You can try, and it wasn't a lack of trying. The dev team really tried, and we wanted to make this work, but we just, it wasn't there, and then we had the discussion. Now what are we going to do? I think there was multiple people. I think the majority of the leadership team came to the same conclusion that, guys, sorry, it's not working. It's not fun. And then what do? Then you have to make a very difficult decision of, if we continue with this, in what shape or form should we continue? And so we sat down and we had a bunch of conversation, and I think we all loved the universe that we've created. We felt very good about having created this kind of retro sci-fi kind of world that has always felt right to us. I know that it's maybe not for everyone, but we love it. We love the idea of something that feels retro yet, sci-fi, feels, and obviously with it just feels right to us, right? It's that simple.
Yeah.
And then we just said, okay, this world and IP deserves a better game than what we're currently building. What does that look like? And at the same time, I remember Alex Gröndal, who came into the project, who was the executive producer that I worked with. He was on Battlefield before. I worked with him many years. We managed to hire him in, and I remember one of the first days I spoke to him and said, listen, we have a lot of work to do, and there's changes that needs to happen. and I can share with you what I think, but I'll put that aside, and I'll let you try and figure this out yourself. And he and I think the team ran with that and came back with a game design that was more in line with what players are playing now. Mm-hmm. Obviously not as detailed as we ended up being at the end, but I think that was for me, it's you have to make a decision on what to do with something like this. You can put all the data up in the world and you can compare to other games, etc. But at the end of the day, it's a decision that comes from your gut.
Yeah.
Does it feel right? Does this feel like a game that we can build and pull it off so that we actually cure the problems that we believe the previous version of the game had? And do we believe that there's a big enough market out there for players, to like this? So I remember we played a ton of extraction games, and everything from Tarkov to The Hunt. I mean, I played so much of those games, and we thought that, okay, this is fun. There's something here. I know it's not for everyone, but we believe that maybe if we make something that's a little bit more accessible than what's out there, and something that's a little bit lighter in how it feels, maybe that could be a way to attract players into something like this. And that's kind of how we started.
It's interesting because I know that I read a comment from you about, because I know you sort of experimenting with AI tech, you mentioned it there, but that feeling of your gut of knowing this isn't right, that's not something you can, that requires a human, it requires experience, I guess, and just, it's not something you can train.
Yeah, thank God that we can't replace ourselves with AI just yet. That's good. And again, it's not about me, to be honest. It's obviously a conscious team effort and team decision. But someone needs to dare to say, what I think is uncomfortable, and that's my job. That's how I look at myself. I'm the guy that needs to point out the things that are uncomfortable, and then I can maybe guide people towards a direction, but ultimately they're the ones that are going to have to figure it out, right?
Yeah. I suspect a lot of my audience might want to know this question, answer to this question, because the numbers on Arc Raiders, I mean, your latest playtest is really strong. Your technical test was really strong. The buzz around it is very impressive. You seem to get people angry with you for not letting them play more, which is a very, very good problem to have. But it's so competitive, not just in the extraction shooter space where there's things like Marathon coming up and stuff, but you're coming up between Call of Duty, Battlefield and Call of Duty, but you're getting real cut for it. You're getting real attention. What's the secret?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I had this conversation with another friend in the industry the other day who told me that, listen, I'm surprised that you guys have been able to start a new studio and then make first the finals, which is a new IP that I think, at least from our perspective, is deemed successful. And then you build Arc Raiders, which, knock on wood, looks like we're going to do at least okay with. And then he asked the questions, how come? What are you guys doing? And it's difficult, right? And I thought about it, and I couldn't give him a good answer. I just said, but I think it comes down to just not being complacent enough to try and believe that we can build something without making a meaningful impact or innovation. We have to bring something to the market so that people pay attention. We just can't fall under the notion that building more of what's already out there is the right formula. For us, if we build a game, we want to try and bring meaningful change to that market, and to try and give people, again, we spoke about it before, a reason to come and try our game. And if we've done a good enough job, maybe they'll stick around. But in order for them to break away from what they're already playing, there needs to be a factor of attraction there for players to come and say, listen, I may go over there. And I think we managed to get to that with the finals for sure. If you would have asked me a couple of years ago, I would have said, listen, finals is a slam dunk. I mean, love that game. Again, I played a lot of it, and I still play it, but I was more concerned about our creators and whether that would find its market. So when we launched the technical test, TT2 we call it, which was in earlier in the spring, we were just blown away by how many people just came and played it. And it became, we obviously tried our best to market it, but it became one of these things that just spread virally. It's like, someone talks to someone and then you have to go try this. And so we were humbled by that and felt like, wow, this is a surprise. But I think it's testament to the work that the team has done with the IP, the work that the team has done with building something that is complicated yet accessible, something that is easy to play yet has a lot of gameplay depth. I think I still get terrified by the ARC, enemies we played yesterday, and we were screaming, Alex and I, in the room as we were being chased by one of the robots, a leaper that we deliberately engaged with and later suffered for it,
regretted it.
But so I think I think that's where it is.
How do you approach? I'm interested. Have you sort of approached development any differently to how you did when you were at EA?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, that's, I think, the foundation of Embark was, if we're going to try and build a studio, we have to, we can't compete with the likes of EA and Activision and other large companies because we don't have the same financial means to do that. We then realized that we had to get to a place where, we spoke about it. Basically, we have to go back and take a look at how you develop a video game. Where do you start? How do you, what aspects of development are there? Whether that's content creation, coding, audio, and we kind of try to be dumb enough to challenge ourselves, not only to make things faster, but to completely change the methodology of what it means to be a game developer for us. And that was the start of Embark. We spent most of our time in the beginning building tools and pipelines and workflows to be able to, I remember Rob, who runs our development or content creation here department. Him and I had a conversation, and I remember feeling a little bit dumb because I said to him, "Listen, I want us to be 10 times faster in content creation so that we can keep up with these Asian live game developers who churn out content. We have to be competitive." And he said, "Okay, I hear you." And we went away, and then we spoke a couple of days later, and I said, "Listen, sorry for telling you, for talking. I know that I was probably a little bit offensive. I'm not suggesting that you're inefficient, but I said, unfortunately, I think what I told you is incorrect. I think that we need to aim for 100 times faster, not 10 times faster." And I said, "Bear with me. I'll try and explain why." And I felt like if our goal is to do it 10 times faster, we're going to go into trying to fix conventional development methods, and that may lead to us being twice as fast if we do a good enough job. Mm-hmm. If you ask for 100 times faster, you have to take what you know and basically throw that away, and then start really thinking about what type of modifications and transformation do we need to go through in order to completely change the way that we approach this. So that's when we came into procedurally generated content, to using AI and machine learning to some extent in even the content creation pipelines, to what types of tools we build, to and realizing that a lot of these tools that we've been working with for so long they stem from software that's 25 to 30 years old. So we may have to build some of these things that are some of the programs that we're using today. We may have to write our own in order to get to where we want to. And today, I wouldn't say that we're 100 times faster than any other studio. That would be arrogant, of course. But I do believe that what we have done has created a way to build products and games and update them that I don't think many others can compete with. And it's because we took that approach. So if you come here, you'll have to learn a bunch of tools that only exist here. You have to go at things in a way that I think we're the only ones doing. This studio is roughly 300 people, and we have 2 relatively large games in development. One is in a live environment. And by the way, we've updated the finals every single week since the time we launched it, and we will continue to update it every single week. Sometimes we have smaller updates, sometimes we're bigger, but the game updates every week. The players know it. Every Wednesday or Thursday, the game will have an update. We will use a similar approach to our creators. We will continuously update the game and make sure that people get a new experience and better experience on an ongoing basis. We also have other games here that we are developing that are other new IPs that we haven't shown yet, and I think to do that with a medium-sized studio, I would say we're not a small studio by any means.
No.
I think is due to the fact that we've made these investments early on.
I've got so many things to follow up there. One of them is Ark Raiders, though. You talk about going faster, but you've given that game time. You haven't rushed that game out, have you? I mean, I guess those two things aren't necessarily contradicting each other, but it seems to be that you want to go faster, but you're not willing to just rush.
No, but to us, it's not about rushing things or about time. It's about doing the right thing at the right time. If you look at the total amount of time or even money that has been spent on Ark Raiders, it's not a game that would have been in development at a larger scale publisher for that amount of time would have cost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. We're not even near that. We haven't spent even close to that on Ark Raiders. Have we spent more than we wanted to? Probably. Yeah. That's always the case. But I don't think people should confuse what we're trying to accomplish for rushing things or doing them quickly necessarily. It's more about efficiency. And also, to some extent, we have had this conversation internally. It's also about building games is an inherently creative work. It's like writing a song or painting a picture. It's creating a movie. And what we also spoke earlier about is to try and remove things that are boring and tedious and things that so people can spend more time creating the stuff that's fun and the things that have that are player facing, really player facing, instead of and to automate a lot of tedious, boring work means that you can spend time on the creative side of building games instead. I think that's, to me and to us, more what it's about than a game needs to launch at a certain point in time.
Yeah. Well, I know at some of those big studios, including the one you worked at, I guess if your game needed to come out faster, you would just put more people on it, right? Whereas I guess you don't have that capability really, but also maybe that's not the best way of doing it.
No, we can't. But again, that's sometimes that can help, and that can have a major impact on your velocity, and that could really pay off. But it is a formula that long term will go against putting quality games in the market. That's just how it works. I mean, sometimes you need to do it, and then you do it. But it's long term. It's not a sustainable formula if you want to build high quality products. I don't think it is.
You did mention there that, you can't compete with EA, you can't compete with Activision, yet you are coming out in between Battlefield and Call of Duty.
No, insanity. Yeah.
But you're holding your own so far. So it doesn't feel like a Titanfall 2 situation, which sort of got squeezed out. I mean, that was a lot shorter time span.
Yeah, I hope not. I mean, listen, I know that people may look at that and say, what the hell are they doing? We have spent a lot of time looking at this from multiple aspects and angles. And, for right or wrong, we've decided that we believe that the game can launch there. We look at this long term. This is the start of a long-term journey.
Yes, true.
It needs to start somewhere. And we just hope that we can get enough players interested and attracted to the game.
I had one other quick question to the question you asked earlier. You're working on other projects as well. So that's are they all online games? Because I'm very mindful of how high risk that market has become.
It is, yeah. That I think is just ingrained in our DNA. That doesn't mean that they're online necessarily games the same way as the finals or Arc Raiders. That they one of the concepts we have is very has a lot more edge to it than the finals or Arc Raiders does. The other one maybe is a little bit more conventional, but yeah.
You took this bold step of leaving the relative safety of EA to create Embark. And this was back in 2018 when things were, the industry was in a slightly happier place than it is now. I'm interested, would you take the same risk today, looking at where the industry is at the moment?
Obviously, it's very easy to say today, right? At the time, my journey at EA, was done for sure, and I would have taken the same decision for sure. And it wasn't so much about Embark; it was more about what I wanted to try and what I wanted to do. I will look at the years that I did as EA as incredibly rewarding and fun, and I got to work with some incredible people there and work on some incredible products. And I learned a ton at EA, and obviously you were a far more public person then, and decisions sometimes you made, you heard about them online and everything. But that's a part of that job, and what people need to understand that just because you work at EA or Activision doesn't mean that you're better or worse. These people that work there try as much as anyone working at Embark or other place to build incredible products, and to a large extent they do. So from my perspective, it was more that I'd been there for 12 years. I never envisioned working at a large company like that for such a long time. So that says something about EA, I think. And for me, it was time to do something. I wanted to get back to this, to work with the teams on software, to be that guy that asks those dumb but difficult questions, that kind of try and do what I can to point people in a direction, and like we spoke earlier about, be someone that is an enabler for these teams to do the things that I believe they have in them. That's where I get my joy. And then be involved in software and seeing it in the hands of players, there's a gratification in that somehow. It just feels good. And the joy of watching a video of people playing your game online, and they're afraid, but yet they're laughing and screaming because they're having fun. That's the ultimate reward, to be honest, more so than anything else, more so than the monetary aspect of building video games. If you do it successfully, than anything, is just seeing that makes me smile and makes it worth all the work and effort that goes into something like this.
You must feel, because obviously it's tough out there at the moment, right? You must have some element of responsibility. I'm interested, I wanted to get your thoughts on the state of the market. I mean, you've just seen EA get, well, it's not officially bought yet, but going for this $55 billion
Yeah.
acquisition. I mean, I ask this to almost everyone I speak to. What's your take on all that? How are you feeling about things? Because you're quite a big studio. You're not huge, but
no, I would say that we're a medium-sized. No, you have to think about it, right?
Yeah.
We are blessed with an owner in Nexon that is a relatively unknown company to people in the West. I mean, relatively, but they're not. But they're not a company whose games you normally would play, I would say, if you live in the West. But they're a massive player, obviously, in Asia. They take a very long-term view, always. They never, and I think they can do that because they have kind of games that are to some extent evergreen. They are games, they have live games that are online that's constantly in the market. MapleStory, Dungeon and Fighter has been out there for 10 plus years, and they're still generating substantial revenue to the company, which, every single day, which allows for them to anything new to give the time it needs to support a studio like Embark in our vision, without having to conform to quarterly reports or a specific date. So we've never, ever had the pressure to ship something at a specific date. We've never had that feeling. It's more when the finals weren't, had its problems, they were like, okay, this was expected. Here's what you need to do. Think about it. Like, they were super supportive and just take your time, fix this, be patient. We were the impatient ones, not them. That is for Embark a blessing, and they're very hands off. They let us do our thing. They believe in us, and incredibly supportive. So that with the fact that we were able to end up in that situation has been a blessing for Embark, and also created stability and security for us. So that's number one. Number two, the industry at large. I think this problem is to some extent self-inflicted. We started this during the pandemic, where we kind of got high on the idea that this will last forever. People will stay home and play video games forever, and they won't go back to their normal lives. Guess what? Fortunately, the pandemic ended, and now people are back to doing what they did before. But we've hired an incredible amount of people in the industry, and now the industry isn't doing as well as it did during the pandemic. At the same time, you've had a substantial shift in what types of games function in the market and how they function. So I think it's a kind of a problem on two sides. So large game companies had to probably right size to some extent, and then you also saw, because when you have a boom like we had during the pandemic in the video game sector, a lot of capital gets put into that sector. So we saw a lot of venture capital and a lot of private equity capital come into the gaming market, and basically it made it possible for so many new studios to be formed. And a lot of these new studios, building a studio is very difficult. Building games is incredibly difficult. So for all of these studios to succeed is unlikely. And then I think we're seeing that also manifest right now, where we're seeing capital is no longer as attracted by the video game sector. There's there's no more capital, a lot more new capital flowing into it. So these smaller companies are going bankrupt, and at the same time, these big publishers are right-sizing their businesses from a post-pandemic era, together with the fact that there are market conditions where competition is steeper and people are hanging on to the games that they play more and more and more, because games like, companies like Epic and Microsoft with Minecraft and other companies are so good at servicing these games that they're more platforms than games themselves.
Yeah.
I think this is not an easy, it's not an easy problem, and it's not a problem that comes from one source. It's a problem that stems from multiple aspects, and that's where we are right now.
Yeah. What I do think the live service game sucking up all the hours, although that's often getting a lot of attention, a lot of conversation, because I think it's the thing we can control the most. I do always think there's always problems like that in the video game industry. Always, pre-owned was a challenge for so long, right? There's always something out there that was taking money, or in this case, time away from the business. But I do think those bigger issues, which is around the huge amount of investment and the capital and all that kind of stuff, is ultimately, led us to this spot. But I mean, I'm really gone over time, Patrick. I appreciate you hanging on. But I was going to ask one final question, which is, I always ask them this question, which is, where do you hope Embark to be in 5 years? What's your goal for I used to say ask this question and go, what's 10 years in the future? But
who knows? In 10 years, we're all replaced by AI. Listen, I hope that we are seen. I don't envision Embark to being much bigger than it is today. That's not a goal for us at all, to be a ginormous studio. I hope that people can look at Embark and view it as a studio that are, where that stems from curiosity. We talk about being curious all the time. We want to look behind what's behind, like the curtain. If we did this, what would that mean?
Mm-hmm.
That we're seen as a studio that is doing something positive for the industry, where our obvious goal is to try and treat the players that play our games with the deepest respect, to listen to them on a continuous basis, and try and adapt and improve the games as such. And individual comment is difficult for us to cater for, of course, but look at clusters of data and information, and if enough people are complaining about something, you ought to fix something. You got to do something about it, right? And that we're seen as kind of a pioneers in many aspects of new IP development, of how to build games in a different way. That's what I hope for us to be seen. I know that those are ambitious goals, but you have to be ambitious, and maybe we'll get halfway.
Well, we're certainly paying off so far in terms of getting attention from players and pleasing them. Well, thank you, Patrick. We're out of time. I've gone over time, but it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And I do best of luck with the launch of Outriders.
Thank you so much.
That's it for today's episode of the Game Business Show. There is no news show this week. We're taking a short break, but we'll be back with more interviews, news and analysis next week. Until then, thank you for tuning in. What is one of the first things you do when you get into the office?
I clean up my email.
Outside of the ones you've worked on, what do you think is the best shooter game of all time?
Half-Life.
Oh, yeah. If you could be the CEO of any other game developer, which would it be?
Probably From Software.
Oh. What book would you recommend to anyone looking to run their own company or set up their own studio?
To be honest, I don't read any of these management books. It's not a thing for me. I'm boring in the aspect that I read old books and sci-fi novels and stuff like that. I couldn't answer that question.
Okay. What is your favorite album of all time?
Probably Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder.
Oh, wow. It's a great one. What one thing do you wish you'd known before starting up Embark?
To be more patient and to trust the process. People here call me sometimes a pain in the, in there, but in maybe a good way. But sometimes I would benefit from being more patient.